Hey everyone, welcome to Promethean Tides. Remember to like and subscribe. I am joined, as always, by Breaker. Hey Breaker, what's going on?
This is not just any presidency, it's a Trump presidency. You're gonna love it. Believe me. Nobody knows more about being president than me. You can trust me.
That's absolutely true. I think we can potentially all look forward to another Trump 4 years. But in addition to that, we are joined by TokyoDrift. TokyoDrift, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? Um, I can't do re like Bakir, and I can't do the Tokyo Drift song, but that's my name on Discord. I can do an American accent, which I'm doing right now. I'm gonna attempt a transatlantic accent to obscure my identity even more than normal.
Okay. Yeah, I guess.
That's a great accent you got there, governor.
Thank you.
Yeah, no one can quite like Breaker can. He is the all-time champ.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I agree. Trump has more star power than DeSantis.
Hey.
Yeah. So it was a relatively slow news week this week, so we don't have that many big things to talk about. But Trump did say that he had decided, or he had made a decision on running. So he didn't officially announce, but effectively he announced. So Trump basically will be running for president. He's just deciding whether he should do it. He should make the official announcement before or after the midterms. Um, and I, personally speaking, I think that that's great. Now he did say it to I guess one of those I forget exactly who he said it to, but it was one of the, I think it was someone from the Washington Post or something, and I'm not sure why it is that Trump would make that sort of not technically announcement but announcement to the Washington Post or whichever outlet it was, because they don't like him, and so why wouldn't he? I don't know. He could have said it on Steven Crowder. You know what? Give the exclusive to Steven Crowder. I think that would have been phenomenal. But instead, he gave that sort of exclusive to one of these institutions that hates him, and in fact, the entire introductory paragraph was just going over how he's being indicted by the January 6th, and there's so many problems with him, and he was impeached twice, and I mean, a hell of a way to introduce a man. But yeah, so that happened. We were trying to get someone onto the show that was specifically pro DeSantis over Trump, but weren't able to find anyone. So I will make this announcement. If you are pro DeSantis and you want to hop on and have the argument, I'd be more than happy to do that. And also, just to finish up the introduction, I've been posting a new song every week down in the description, and if you happen to think that you have a good song, leave it as a comment. I'll try to give it a listen, and if it's good, I'll put it up on the following show. Just because I like music. I'm a big fan. I can't play worth shit, but I do like listening to it. So yeah. With that, cool. So Tokyo Drift. You said that you would prefer Trump over DeSantis.
Uh, it's actually that I actually know nothing. I'm in London in the UK, and I know nothing about Mr. DeSantis. I would have to Google and start an education from basically nothing. Whereas Trump is Trump, and everyone kind of understands that. That's as far as it goes, I think.
Okay, and Breaker, I understand that you do not care either way.
I just want the funniest candidate. Let Biden run again. I want to see how bad this can be allowed to become. I'm really sincerely curious. How much of a literal Alzheimer's patient can all the mainstream news apparatchiks just look square in the face and say, this is perfectly fine? Like, how long can this massive Chaucerian fraud continue? It's comedy gold. Every single day that Biden doesn't keel over is comedy gold.
Well, it is humorous in maybe not so much in the haha that's funny kind of way, and more of the haha gee oh dear God sort of way. But yeah, it is it is funny, I guess. I in my position, let's see, the economy is in a spiral. I think that we're heading towards a another Great Recession, like we saw from the 2008 financial crisis. So and it maybe this one will be worse. Who knows? I think that we're going to be facing food shortages. Maybe America won't be hit as hard as some nations, but we're going to be facing probably skyrocketing costs of food. Gas is already up past $5. Who knows how much further it will climb? The value of basically most of the stocks in the stock market is down. Commodities are down. Crypto is down. The dollar itself is down. Good news for Americans. The euro is actually down more than the dollar. So actually, the dollar overtook the euro in value for the first time in God knows how long. But you know, it seems as though a lot of things are going to shit. And, you know, it's funny, but at the same time, this is, I think, affecting a lot of people directly. And I don't know. I would prefer to not have someone in office that is going to destabilize our nation this much.
Well, considering what America has become at this point, I think it kind of deserves to live in clown world. Not only America, but the entire world deserves a clown as its de facto leader of the quote-unquote free world. We're all free to clown in clown world.
Right. I mean, I understand that many mistakes have been made. I get it, but I don't think that means that we deserve bad things. Like I want to see the West continue. I think it's or at least, you know, parts of the West. Obviously not Germany. I don't care about them, but you know, for the most part, I would like to see the West continue. I would like to see the West remain stable, and I don't necessarily want to see China rise up and become the world hegemon, because you know, as perhaps shitty as America has been with that role, my guess would be that China would be far worse. And yeah, so I don't know. I think at a certain point, you have to be a little bit practical here, and you have to go, okay, yes, technically speaking, I don't care about politics, fine, but maybe we can just choose the thing that doesn't get our nation fucked in the ass, right?
Remember that one time we were talking about every now and then a cleansing fire is required? Yeah, I think it's I think the world in general is well overdue for such an event in the political sense.
So right, okay. You are taking the stance of full on accelerationism. Just rip the band-aid off, let the fire occur, and maybe from the ashes we can build something grander. That is a position, certainly. So let me get TokyoDrift in on this. Tokyo, would you consider yourself to be an accelerationist, maybe like a pro Biden supporter, or does that what do you think?
Um, is it asking too much of an education to ask why Biden is the accelerationist candidate? Do I have to know everything about accelerationism? Is it about accelerating what I don't remember the doctrine at all. Almost, is it about accelerating a collapse, or is it about accelerating techno capital takeover, or whatever, AI takeover?
I guess it could be both. I think in this case it would be more about a collapse.
Right. Um. Okay. So yeah, now's the time to disclose that I'm like subtly. So first of all, I even dislike the term based. Ironically, I find the term based to be cringe. And so I'm in a pickle because it means I cannot be based, and I think that is borne out in more than one way. So I don't have all that many base positions. I'm for a certain amount of what you guys might term degeneracy, in that it's natural, in that some of this is, or perhaps all of it is natural, and maybe at some point we can link this around because Prakir previewed me your philosophy, which was something about pantheist naturalism, something or other. It could. I'm sure it's more integrated than I can imagine at the moment. But if so this is to say, I'm somewhat naturally anti-based. More out of I hope more out of because of a set of observations than a projected conjectural vision.
Well, I would have to ask you what you mean by based, because taking anti-based as a philosophy seems to be, I guess, a bit odd to me, because I think based is just something that some people say to mention that something is like cool or good or something they support. I mean, what?
I thought it.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I thought it implied it is from like deeper soil. It's in the word. It's from deeper soil, and this deeper soil is like greater, like, I don't know, greater harmony with nature than the other camp, and so you emerge from that with apparently more sort of right wing perspectives. I thought that's what based meant. So it's like cool in a right wing way.
Yeah. Based in red pilled, right? Instead of woke and blue pilled, I guess would be the difference. But I mean, I I don't know. I mean, so you're saying that you're anti whatever the conservatives would think is good?
Um, no, not necessarily. And I like this contrast between woke and blue pill versus based and red pill. That I didn't think of that dichotomy. I can see how it might have come to that, and that's evocative. And I'm hesitating because the longer I talk, the more it will be revealed that I don't have an education of much in anything, because you get people like, I don't know if I mentioned it before, like Haz of Infrared on Twitch and YouTube, who does all these debates on modern day debates, and so his little Twitch notification when someone subscribes or gives money is Alexander Dugin. I think that's his name, saying based in a funny way, in a funny Russian accent. And so Haz is a communist, right? So Haz is a communist. like of the type that Briquet could get to grips with, because Briquet is sometimes calling for earnest communists like Slavoj Zizek and Haas, if you knew who Haas was. And Haas has developed a falling out with Zizek because he says Zizek is a big secret. He's revealed that he's a big neoliberal or whatever because he is for Europe against Russia in terms of Ukraine. So apparently you can be based as a Marxist Leninist as well. Like I saw his debate with Keith Woods, and so they are. It's not clear to me who of the two camps in that debate had a better claim to the term based or to its substance.
I'm not sure how meaningful of a word based really is. I mean, it's a fun word to say, 100%. It rolls off the tongue, but I think that like if we wanted to talk about what we are fundamentally pro or against, then maybe we could use a less all-encompassing word than based. Maybe we could be a little bit more specific.
Yeah, it's interesting. This may all be just to say, like, if like when I join the podcast, and I'm glad that you guys are doing something. I should be doing it in a very. It should be in a very costly way, a very risky and expensive way to myself. In that, I will probably tend to represent lefty positions, both as a counterpoint, as a foil, because it's interesting, and because I believe some of them, but I'm unwilling to articulate all of them because I'm conscious of a certain well, yeah, it's funny. Yeah, no, I would weave. I think ultimately I would weave from left to right and then left again in order to be polite. And there are other restrictions, like Briquet made insightful jokes about restrictions on speech in Europe and the UK that don't exist in America. So that's part of the calculation, and it's funny, yeah, because moral matters come into it. And okay, but yeah, if nothing else, I would tell myself as someone who was not ready to make as many moral pronouncements as are made in political campaigning.
Yeah,
I will not. Yeah.
I don't think anyone's asking you to run for office. So, are you? Okay. So, would you say that you're that you have a leaning towards Marxism?
No, I'm not versed in Marxism. I've got an introduction to Marxism from the Oxford Very Short Introductions series on my shelf. It's written by Peter Singer, who you know from Effective Altruism. He has funny positions about. I think he's from the moral. He talked about the expanding moral scope. Like as we go on, our moral senses become more fine-grained and more universal, or something. And I've got the Marx Engels reader by I think it's a Princeton something or other. So I've got these two books and I haven't read them, so I can't claim that.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I guess I'm not exactly sure what positions you hold. So maybe we could just go through like a short list and see what we agree or disagree on. So how about this one? Do you want the government to have more power than it currently does, or less power than it currently does?
In general, shall we generalize about the Western world?
Sure. If you want to keep it specific to America because you don't want to talk about your whatever home country you're in, that's fine. We can just talk about America.
I would feel it way less. So let's pretend that the US and the UK is a super nation currently, and I'm talking about that super nation.
Yeah, they kind of are.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about that. Oh, I know what's provocative. What might help in that respect is I don't think Mr. Trump failed you in his pandemic strategy in the way that you imagine. So I'm for the Fauci ouchie in that I don't think there was a conspiracy to harm people. I understand. I would understand more if your perspective was that it's untested and we still don't know any long-term effects of the vaccine. I think you at some point your credentials have come up that you were trained in biology in some capacity.
Well, yeah, I think it's just it's one of those things. Generally speaking, when you have a completely novel a drug that you're going to be introducing into a populace, generally speaking, it takes about 10 years worth of testing and billions of dollars to get it through the FDA. All of that testing was it was waived, just I guess because we were in the midst of a pandemic, to make sure that we got the vaccine out. And I question whether that was a good idea. And I wouldn't even say that. Like I'm not saying I'm not advancing the idea that anyone was doing anything malicious. But what I am saying is that mistakes happen all the time. Like you put something into a incredibly complex biological system like the human body, and it's damned near impossible to know if there are going to be side effects or not. That's why you have to have adequate testing, and we simply did not do that, and I find that to be unfortunate. And yeah, I think you know what one bad part about Trump, even though I am a Trump supporter, he pushed that through with the warp speed initiative, and probably has to do with the fact that he probably knows very little about science. He was like, you know what, just make the vaccine, get it through, whatever. But I think that might have been a mistake. Yeah.
Okay, so if we're to come back to that, if I steal the last word about COVID before I move on to another position, which I know conflicts
Sure.
between us, if I steal the last word, it's to say it was reasonably deadly or sufficiently deadly to and to contribute to hospital overwhelm. So there is some material argument I would try to make to justify a warp speed or an emergency use authorization thing, but we can come back to that.
Well, it was actually quite deadly to old people over the age of 60. Absolutely. Which is why it would make absolute sense to go ahead, do the warp speed if you really need to, if you think that it's that threatening to the lives of the over 60s, and you give it out to those people who are at very high risks of COVID. You don't need to force the vaccine on the entire population, including the young people who have very little risk of getting of dying from COVID. You have it as an option, always an option, not something that's mandated, for like the old people that might actually truly need this untested vaccine, because the risks from the virus are greater than any potential risks of side effects. Yeah, I mean that makes sense, but in that case, you provide it as an option to the people that are most at risk. Like that's how you would handle any sort of outbreak of an epidemic. I mean, that would make sense. But I'm sorry, I meant to let you have the last word. So go ahead. You have the last word.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So maybe I'll steal the last word again on this matter, and I'm hoping I remember the next one, the next subject. So this one, my new last word on this is, I should talk from my experience, because the problem would be for me to simulate the skin in the game of an epidemiologist or someone that studied this or helped create policy, and they would get up in arms and they would probably find cause to shout and to defend their professional integrity. But I don't know the material, so I should. What seems more correct is to talk about why I chose to take the actions that I took, such as taking taking the jabs at the first opportunity. And in that case, I was persuaded by stuff like the long COVID stories that I don't need more cognitive impairment than I already have. So I was like, this one one more time, I'll trust the science, i.e., the government, or that the government is sufficiently technocratic because they give me that impression. They look well fed. They have glasses or spectacles, and they speak clearly. Sometimes, at least in the UK. So I trusted them not to harm the population with the jabs. So it's a fear of long COVID multiplied by sufficient trust in a sufficiently technocratic government that compelled me to take the jabs.
Was it a
So
what was it? It was Goebbels who was very well spoken and also wore spectacles, wasn't it?
yeah, well, I guess I can't say on this argument that I would have resisted Goebbels' charms and philosophy
Hmm.
and argumentation. Yeah, you're quite right.
Nazi sympathizer confirmed. Well, guess we got to kick him out.
No, but for the YouTube audience, that's to say that I'm confessing to being a plebeian of some description. That here and there I go with the flow, but yeah, essentially.
Well, that's totally fine. I mean, look, I think that America is founded on a slightly different philosophy than, let's say, the UK. Our nation was, in its conception, fundamentally a libertarian dream, right? Whereas the UK, it wasn't actually founded on anything other than, I guess, who initially took control of the land and established a lineage of kings and queens. So there are distinct differences, I guess, in the view of government between the US and the UK. Of course, the UK tends to be more in the direction of distrusting their government than, say, the rest of continental Europe. Of course, the Germans and the French. Oh man, they just their favorite pastime is to kiss the boots of whatever political leader is telling them what to do. They love that shit. They get off on it. I'm sure that they there's a lot of orgies and masturbatory sessions that exist about kissing the boots of leadership. But here in America, I think that we take a more distrustful stance towards the government, or at least we used to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting what you say. I don't actually know enough about Germans or French people to say that they kiss boots that much.
Come on,
I mean,
you're English. You have an opinion on them.
No, I'm not that English. Like, Ricky referred to me as Super Mario because that's in reference to my ethnicity. My ethnicity is not English.
Oh, you're Japanese. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
There you go. We'll go with that.
Nintendo, right?
Famous Japanese superstar Mario.
I'm from the Nintendo Nation. That's right.
Exactly.
Speaking of Shinzo Abe, no, we weren't speaking about Shinzo Abe.
Okay. So I won't ask you about your opinions on the Germans. I'll ask you about your opinions on Bowser and his kingdom.
And by Bowser you mean Shinzo Abe? No. No. I'm confused.
No, Shinzo Abe was a cool guy. He would be the who's like the anti-Bowser? Like would Shinzo Abe be Mario, or would he be Princess Peach? I think he would be Princess Peach, actually.
So part of the background of this is that Shinzo dressed up as Mario at the opening of the London Olympics, I think. No, it would have been the Japanese Olympics.
Okay, so basically,
yeah.
Shinzo Abe is either Mario or Princess Peach, and then I guess that it would be Winnie the Pooh that would be Bowser in that case.
I guess, or it could
Seems
be.
accurate, actually. That's very geopolitical. Very
Yeah.
geopolitically correct.
Yeah, we got references here.
I was going to offer that population decline in Japan is Bowser for Shinzo Abe.
Oh, okay, yeah, metaphorically that could work as well.
That's all I know about his platform is that he didn't apologize properly for comfort women, Korean comfort women, and he apparently wanted Japanese people to reproduce a bit more. That's what I know.
Yeah, not
Yeah. He remilitarized, or he pushed for remilitarization.
Yeah, I guess that I'm not by any means a scholar of Japanese politics. I am an ignorant pleb, just like probably most people. But my understanding is that he gave some sort of apology about the comfort women that I guess was not satisfactory. I guess, but you know what? He did want the Japanese people to stop humping body pillows and start humping their fellow human, and for that, God damn it, I support him because he was going against the anti-natalists, and Godspeed to that soul.
Yeah, he was kind of like Elon Musk in that way, or Elon Musk made a specific shout out to Japanese people and their reproductive needs. So that's not the best link, not the most meaningful link. I'm trying to remember what I was going to move on to, but I shouldn't make this an interview about myself.
No. We get off track quite a bit here. That's all right.
Other platforms which I think I know I disagree with you about.
Okay,
other subjects. So vaccine was one. Oh, I remember. So I'm again siding with the technocratic elite that the 2020 election may not have been stolen from Trump.
I think you mean heavily fortified. This is going on YouTube after all.
Yeah, no, it was not stolen. It was a very fair and democratic election with just the best amounts of fortification. Yeah, we're in agreement.
That part I'm pretty sure is sarcasm, right?
It's a necessary sarcasm for the litigious purposes, TokyoDrift. Do I have to spell it out for you? I know you said you were done at the onset of this, but goddamn.
But I think neither the algorithm nor the people know how to reverse a sarcasm thing. It's like a magic spell. You can say that you're sarcastic about something after the fact, and then they can't unwind it. They can't untangle that. So you can say the election was fortified in a democratic way, and then if after 2 seconds you say not, then you've communicated what you wanted to communicate, and they can't take you off YouTube.
You never know how smart these AIs are getting. You know what I noticed actually? So a few years ago, like I would sometimes like try out the closed captioning thing on YouTube, and it was abysmal. It would get like every third word wrong. And I was looking at the closed captioning that was auto-generated for these videos, and it was surprisingly accurate. It gets like 1% of the words wrong. In the last few years, they've made it be a lot more accurate. And I guarantee you, man, if they can get an AI to very, very accurately take speech and put it directly into text form, then do you know how easy it is for an AI to then analyze that text and try to decipher meanings from it? I mean, this is Google that we're talking about. They have some powerful AIs in their back pocket, some of which may or may not be sentient. Apparently, it's mostly a joke.
I got it.
Mostly.
Does anyone know about in a court of law if you can say the election was fortified, not if you say not, does that? Are you allowed to say that? In order?
Borat strategy.
What?
A Borat strategy.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Pamela Anderson, I am in love with you. Not.
Okay, yeah. But anyway, so you're saying that the election was, in fact, there was nothing wrong with it. It was a beautiful election. It was the best election.
It seems like something I can't argue much of it. I can ask: is your main contention with the lamestream that the mail-in system is the part that was abused?
So
the mail, yeah.
I think that the mail-in voting thing, number one, it's been found to be anti-constitutional in a number of state courts after the fact. So it wasn't something that that should have been done in the first place. And when I say constitutional, I'm referring to the constitutions of the state governments that enacted this. So it was found to probably basically be illegal in the first place. And then not only that, but it does introduce I guess some extra places in that system where further fortifications could be put in, and sometimes, as much as I love democracy, sometimes some of those fortifications make me a little bit wary. So I will say that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. And I'm probably on even less footing on this point than I am about the vaccines. So that's fine. I had a question. Yeah, so I think that might be it. Like, as to the political platform of the podcast, I think those two might be my biggest problems. Even though I don't have much of an argument in either case, it's to say that you have an argument, so it's fine. It's just like I was saying to Bouquet before the show, like it can sound like pandering, like it's plausible in the way that it sounds when you guys talk about it, that you hold these positions and you'll hold related positions, related in a big indirect memetic web. You hold them in part because they help to secure an audience. So you kind of either have these days you still largely have either a right-leaning or a left-leaning audience, and so part of what may be working on you is the desire to secure an audience as much as to have correct opinions.
Oh, I see. Right. So I think that last I checked, on this channel we have all of 18 subscribers.
Yes,
so
but when you grow,
I'm not exactly sure how much we're doing to try to really secure an audience. In fact, I happen to be a libertarian, maybe a very strong libertarian. I wouldn't put myself all the way into ANCAP, but I'm very strongly libertarian. For the life of me, I still don't exactly know what Breaker's political beliefs are. Other than I want to see it burn Joker style.
Well, here's the thing about. I'll actually tell you something about that. Since there can be no such thing as a true coalition and concretization of a realpolitik, because from an a-perspectival view, there's so much like good and bad, like so many things to be taken into account from so many different perspectives, that whatever the political, environmental circumstances you happen to find yourself in, different things will have to be applied to each of those environments. Now, within living memory, we remember like the the Jesus peoples that tried to ban D&D and the porn and the violent video games and those people were just like roughly 20 years ago. Those people were very prevalent in society in our living memory alone. I'm sure there's older people in here that might remember some of this. And back then, like, you would have been more on the side of the left, only because superficially it appeared to be the left wing that were making the most libertarian arguments, like leave art alone. Now the left wing is not only saying not leave art alone, but art has to contain very specific things about very specific people, and if it doesn't, you're a racist.
Yeah. I used to be more on the side of the left. I had to switch sides, not because I necessarily wanted to, but because I guess in my bones, I'm just kind of anti-authoritarian, and that's where I'm at. Yeah, here's the thing. If to address your point, TokyoDrift, if the goal here was just to pander and to secure a listening base, I think that we could be doing a much better job at that, because I think that, like, for instance, like, I'm generally speaking anti-government. I am pro-Trump because I think that he's one of the best presidents that we've ever seen. But also, I guess that what I've recently learned is that the closest thing to my religious philosophy is naturalistic pantheism, which isn't exactly probably the best tasting thing for the Christian conservative base. So the only thing that I'm interested in doing is coming on here and having just interesting conversations. And you know what? if I get proven wrong, I'm kind of happy, because like, I get to learn something new. I get to know, oh shit, okay, I was incorrect about that. I've personally speaking, I've been on Discord since 2017, just arguing with people all the time. That's what I like to do. I like to argue. I like to have conversations about things. And actually, I want to say this. I really do like Discord because it's allowed me to refine a lot of my positions. When I first hopped on, I think I had a lot of bullshit opinions, and through the process of multiple years of just constantly arguing with people, I've been able to refine some of my positions, and I can be more confident about them. That doesn't mean that I'm right, by the way. Like, I could be disproven tomorrow, but I do like just the process of the fight and the argument, and using that to just try to improve the quality of your positions. Like, that's my favorite thing.
Understood.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking about my next step. And I might reiterate that I essentially can't have a completely good faith conversation because I'm too worried about if not the law, then like cancellation. So you guys will skirt things that are cancelable, but not touch it, because it would seem that YouTube has kind of laid down the law about many or most things which are cancelable are also forbidden in terms of their guidelines. So they would close accounts that discuss certain things, or in certain ways.
Yeah, you know what the weirdest thing was, actually? So I don't know, like, if it was. I'm sure that it was just like a weird fucking glitch in the YouTube or whatever, but I think it was on our most recent main show video from last week. We got up to 96 whole views on the show. We were almost at 100. I was kind of excited. I was like, holy shit, almost 100 people have watched this. And then a couple hours later, they removed like eight views for whatever reason. They just disappeared, and I was like, why did that happen? I'm sure it's just something weird on YouTube's end, but I don't know. I mean, the fact of the matter is that they do have the power to basically if you offend them too much, they can downrank your videos, make sure that no one sees them. They can potentially just remove viewer counts if they feel like it. It almost kind of reminds you of Twitter to some extent. I don't know, but that's completely beside the point. What I'm once again I'm going off into a tangent. Sorry.
No, it's interesting. And it's like what I could lead this into is like, speaking of promotion or like growing your audience. I was going to say I didn't want to talk too much about it because I think most of that has been reduced to a science. So if you but I did have other types of feedback, like you could have a politics show and then a philosophy show, and they would have different thumbnails. You could even say up front, like Brakir. We could it could be a fun game. Like Brakir has, as ineffable as his philosophy is, we could find the words that fit it, or Brakir could, because he has the lexicon. So I'm trying to think. I actually can't name what Brakir's thing would be, but for yourself, you said that you were, for example, a pantheist, naturalist, libertarian. So the show is about General Chief, the pantheist, naturalist, libertarian, and Brakir, the whatever Brakir is.
I think that Brakir's philosophy, it's some sort of like Lovecraftian philosophy that escapes the boundaries of the human mind. Yep.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough,
okay, so I think that is actually really good input, and thank you for taking the time to think about that and deliver that up. So,
well, TokyoDrift is our #1 fan. He watches all of the episodes all the way through.
Hell yeah! So my response to that would be, I think that this might be a disagreement that Breaker and I have. So I don't separate philosophy from politics. I think that they are one and the same. Whereas I think because Breaker doesn't care about politics, maybe he thinks of them more separately. I'm actually not really sure, but I actually don't see a purpose in keeping them separate.
Yes, I agree that they would come together. But
well, here's the weird thing about that. I actually do have something like a realpolitik, but like I said before, insofar as that overlaps with my philosophy, it's actually not very much, because basically in metamodernism, if anyone knows who Hansi Freinacht is, to have something resembling a realpolitik, you basically have to solve this like extremely convoluted like fractal fucking geometry equation and how to make all of these things gel. And #1, I'm not that smart, and #2, that's not going to be like a concretized basis for most common people to form their political opinions from, because most people aren't going to understand that.
Okay, but here's the thing, right? I can take my philosophy and it informs me about my politics, right? So, like, for instance, I trust in nature. What does nature say? It tells you to reproduce. When some government official says you should have less babies, I know automatically, fuck that guy, because I can use my philosophy to inform my politics. Like, I don't think that they need to be separated, and I don't think that you need to I don't think that you need to look at politics as purely a realpolitik Machiavellian game. I think that that's a bad outlook on that.
Well, for my part, what I've achieved is another label for Bouquet. Like if we're adding my contribution to the design of the show up front, or the bio or the about section of the show, I would even hope to include it. Like my idea was like these things should be on the thumbnail, so we would assess the main point of the conversation after the fact, and then add that to the thumbnail. So this show is about was about I don't know. You don't have to flatter me. So this one would be about Tokyo Drift, kind of like mumbling into the mic about not having certain positions. So that's what's novel about this episode. You could do that, or it could be this is the Shinzo Abe episode, so that's in the thumbnail. But under Brakir, we've achieved another word, which was metamodernist. I forgot about that. So it's like Lovecraftian metamodernist something. So that's fun.
No, I've got the title right now. Number one fan spills all the spicy tea.
Yeah, all the spicy tea. All the...
I don't.
No.
I don't think it's that spicy. I would, what I was thinking is, and maybe this is because I'm shit poor at marketing and I don't know how to do clickbait. But I was like, the first thing that sprung to my head was a meta discussion about the show. Like that was what I was thinking. But
yeah.
Oh, it's so meta.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Actually, it's super meta because right now we are discussing the title of the video that is discussing the channel. It's like 4 layers of meta.
Yeah.
By the way, you need to wake up. You've been in a coma for 25 years. You need to wake up.
That's right.
That's been alleged, yeah. What was I going to say?
Oh, actually, let me ask you something because you I guess you watch a lot of the videos. Did you like that intro with the you need to wake up from your coma?
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny.
It's good. It is also freaky. Like I think at our age, we're still occasionally persuaded by movies that are freaky and strange. So it's kind of freaky and strange, but like in such a way that I'm tempted to think some people would need like a warning. Whether I don't know,
Like a
there's the trigger
warning, maybe.
Yeah, like some people would be triggered because they might have a family member that had a coma, or they'd be like they're very used to personalization or dissociation, so they're like, oh shit, am I in a coma? So some people would be more easily fooled than others.
How did I know you would say that?
Yeah, I don't think they were going to be doing any sort of trigger warnings on this show.
Well, yeah, and if I have like yet another position about another domain, it's that it's like about comedy. So like I am sort of more or less proudly SJW trained to an extent.
Nice.
But the consequence being that I think I try to keep it clean, except in like very private conversation, where it's a bit more like South Park. It can be more like South Park humor in private conversation.
I think that I have to strongly disagree with you on that one. I believe that if you're willing to have a spicy conversation, but only when in very 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 private areas, and you're not willing to have that spicy conversation, you have to keep it clean all the time outside of that, and you won't say certain things. I think that is one of the major problems that we are facing in, let's say, I'll keep it to within America, within the American civilization. I want to have. I think that we ought to be able to have all the conversations. Just fuck it. I don't care.
Yes.
These are important discussions to be had, I believe. Like the abortion thing, right? Like why? I suppose that it might be impolite to discuss abortion with certain people because maybe they had an abortion, or maybe they feel strongly that only women should be able to have an opinion on abortion. Of course, that actually would be offensive because it's not just women that should have an opinion on abortion. It's actually birthing persons, because nowadays men can, well, quote unquote, men can have babies. So like when you start down that rabbit hole of like, oh, you got to stay politically correct with all of your public discussions, it doesn't go anywhere good, because what is right now considered to be okay will be considered to be offensive in 3 years, and we've seen that happen. Fuck that shit.
Well, yeah. What I begin to think is that my thing will evolve into like the postmodern fragmentation, wherein there is no correct answer. There's just like multiplicity of perspectives. I'm tempted. I'm willing to think that, and that people like ourselves could anticipate that a postmodern fragmentation. So which means that yes, it is about birthing persons. It is about allowing the maximum number of people their private worlds and perspectives and designs. But then you could argue that that's pretty libertarian as well. But then to speak openly is not to actually burn and destroy other people's enclaves and private worlds, I guess. But sometimes they feel that way.
I'm not usually a big fan of postmodernism myself.
I know. I'm
Hey,
just
wait a
worried. I'm
minute.
worried.
Now,
Yeah.
Tokyo Drift with what you just said. I mean, with what you just said, would there even be such a thing as privacy at that? Let's say that someone who would be offended by hearing a certain thing on this particular show were to tune into the show and thereby be offended by the particular thing that is their trigger for whatever reason. Could you even say at that point that there is that the term private individual or private opinions even mean anything when your opinion on being triggered by the word coma, as innocuous as that might sound, has actual political force behind it? How private is that opinion if by extension you can exert power with it into the world?
Yes. I think it sounds like a good question, and I think I intuited some of that question when I was rambling a moment ago. But sometimes I lose the thread. I think it was probably a good question, but I lost the thread slightly. It's not your fault. I just lose the thread sometimes.
Happens to the best of us.
So it's some kind of paradox of privacy. So you
I think I think that to some extent, I think, and this is my opinion, of course, but I think that this is maybe a little bit silly. I think that I'm let me ask you this. Do you plan on having babies?
I'm undecided. I don't have any concrete plans. No.
Why is that?
I don't know, many reasons. I think it would rapidly get personal. As much as I want it to be fruitful, I'm afraid of like doxing and being very personal.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to get too personal. I'm asking about your philosophy. I mean, like,
Oh, like am I a natalist or antinatalist or
sure.
that type of thing? And north of those things. I can go some distance on either track. For myself, for others, it's weird. It kind of goes everywhere. Because part of my thoughts is like it's about the worlds or the situations in which I think like
Let me
like
let me ask you this question. Do you hate yourself?
Not to get personal.
you can't just ask someone if they hate themselves.
Hey, man, you know what? I don't think anyone should hate themselves, and I think that the idea of not trying, at least trying to replicate, means that you don't think that you're good enough. You don't think that your genes are good enough to actually for you to want them to carry on into the next generation. And I think that if that is a perspective that someone holds, I think that that's incredibly sad. I think that we are put onto this world by the god that is nature to replicate. We in a K-typed selection, not R-type, K-type, but I mean, I think that anyone that is capable of reproducing should definitely want to do that. right? Like, it just makes sense. I was talking to some vegans a few months ago, and they were saying, no, 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 I don't want to reproduce myself because I guess there's too many humans on the earth, and also like humans cause suffering to animals, and also humans cause suffering to other humans. So in that case, the best thing that these particularly militant vegans should do is that they should just never have kids, because I guess that would be the optimal outcome, because that is that's like the grand manifestation of their utilitarianism. Just reduce the number of humans. I see this sort of philosophy pop up all the time. It manifests in many different ways, from people trying to castrate their children and make them trans, or when it comes to
I'm trans.
yeah, right. Breaker is trans, by the way. Or when it comes to the general promotion of the homosexual lifestyle, or when it comes to like, oh my god, like no, the climate change, we have to limit the number of people that exist, or else the world would get too hot. Like, there's all of these different ways that people are persuaded to be antinatalist, and I think that it's incredibly toxic, and I think that it detaches us from a fundamental part of our connection with nature, right? It's in my perspective, it's like satanic, but not in the Christian sense, in like the naturalistic pantheistic sense. It's like whatever Satan would be for that.
I think, yes, I think you can go. It's a very nice, fundamental, and fertile way to start a conversation. I think it's a good conversation starter for a fundamental and wide-ranging conversation. I think it touches on. It seems to touch on everything. So not. So this hating myself question is interesting because that's part of it. One's psychology, but it's everything. One's picture at all of the world. So it's like it's a million things. And yeah, if you define satanic that way, that's fine and interesting, because maybe we can have a Catholic come in. We know a couple of Catholics on Discord.
Oh, we've had a Catholic on here before.
Yeah, to talk about, to see if they agree with your definition of satanic, and
they don't.
talk about. Okay, well, they might agree with respect to the virtue of reproducing.
That's a long conversation in itself.
Yeah, but the virtue of reproducing, everything's involved. So relations between people, regulating sexuality and pairing, and the world.
There's a reason why there's a reason why there's a specific reason why it's connected to everything, and that's because fundamentally it is the most important thing to humans. That's why it's connected to everything.
I suppose so. It's a good question.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, hold on. Breaker, you're breaking up. All right, I'll let you start that again. I'm not going to edit this one. Go ahead.
Don't worry, TokyoDrift. We'll edit you to make you look smarter.
No, you don't have to do
that. I will not.
You don't have to. I'm hoping they have generosity about it, and it's to say he is stopping himself from making certain commitments, certain argumentative commitments, or disclosing too much about himself. That's why he's stumbling. It's a good question. I can say that. Yeah, but to really get at it, I think it could. If I were to get at it, I could have it privately. Like, I have friends with whom I can have that conversation, but it touches just about everything.
So you don't want to have the conversation here. You want to have it later. We could do an after show if that makes you feel more comfortable.
No. The problem being that it's exposed to the world. So
oh, come
because
on! It's we have a very small channel here. It's not exposed
no,
to very much.
Okay,
No.
I think I can build this bridge here, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, about the difference between based and woke, and how exactly are those things defined. I think, like, from my philosophical perspective specifically, not speaking for anyone else, because I know some of the origins of the term woke. Based, I think TokyoDrift was kind of describing it good as, like, of the deep soil, like something of depth. I don't know the proper meme magic origins for these things, so forgive me if I'm not exactly right and someone in the comments is going to say actually. But anyway,
it all comes back to Pepe.
I think well, there you go. I think from my perspective, the difference between the base and the woke is the base is more of a bottom-up from inside-out perspective, and the woke is more top-down from outside-inward perspective of fundamental reality. Now, it sounds kind of weird and glib and arrogant for me to put it in those exact terms, but when you think about it, like, the salt of the earth, quote-unquote, based people are usually acting in accordance with something very deep within human nature, and something you could say primal and animalistic in a way. Especially General Chief would tend to agree with this type of framework from the evolutionary perspective, obviously, because that is the sublime origin. But I think on the woke side, what you get is a more essentialist, Platonic, plucking these, like, divine, idealistic notions from the ether and trying to bring them down and match them up with reality to the best of your ability. Now, in the current socio-political zeitgeist of the Western world, not to say much about the other parts of the world because they all have their own problems, but sticking to the Western world, there's kind of like, I get the sensation that there's a bit more undue friction than there needs to be bringing these two viewpoints together, because I don't think man is merely only an animalistic base creature driven only by instinct, nor is man this sublime ideological object, as Zizek might tend to argue. I think it requires some type of a meeting in the middle between the transcendent and the numinous and the base and primordial of our natures coming together to grow something that is, in a way, emergent, that's not strictly speaking the sum of those two parts in and of itself, but actually it works to create something new from these two things meeting. The main problem I see is with the ideological people. Like, every time they get critiqued by the quote-unquote base people and the woke feel that they're being attacked, they ratchet up the ideology to the point where there's no way in hell whatever the ideology is telling them to do is going to interface with reality very well, if at all. And the ideology now is so rarefied and unrealistic that it has little to no hope of ever actually interfacing with the day-to-day lives of the common people. And that's why I usually avoid, like, really meta-modern political perspectives, because I will admit I'm kind of elitist in this way, that the common realpolitik of the common person, not everyone can be a philosopher. Even the most ardent egalitarians, you will find them in some way, shape, or form making arguments to the effect that, like, you could see people like Vaush on YouTube, or Vosh, or however the fuck you say his name. People like that will literally say that right-wing Republicans are just soulless creatures that want nothing for you but your death and suffering. And to the extent that he sincerely believes this, I can't say, but he says it with a very, very much vigor and gusto when he's online talking about these type of things. I think that particular ideology, whether it's coming from the left or the right, is extremely unproductive and very dangerous, to say the very least. And that's the type of thing that we should be avoiding.
Sure.
I agree. I do want to point out, Breaker, you said something interesting that the the combination of the nature of man with, I guess, the ability of man to reason is creating something new. And I agree with that. It is something that is new. It's something that's novel. We haven't really seen it in the animal kingdom, especially to this extent. And not to derail the conversation too much, we can move ever so swiftly past this. But I do want to point out that I think that that combination that is creating that new thing, that is the phenotypic revolution, and I think it's dangerous. But that's maybe that's just me kind of being an anarcho-primitivist. But we can move forward.
I don't know. Let's say one thing. Like, I want to say one positive thing. By positive, I mean a statement, like an existing statement rather than a non-existing thing. Positive, which is, it's not straightforward. I'm not persuaded that people really just want to reproduce. So the one thing to reproduce is being like horny and attracted to people. And that's there. Like, I have that. I know Brakir has that. Sorry, I wanted to make a joke. So I have that. There are certain rationalizations that come in to meet that impulse. I want to say, if I am not as crazy to reproduce as other people, it may be because I haven't met the appropriate partner. So this is to say, even if they're not a soulmate, you might find a partner who inspires you enough, who inspires you to say that that child would be worth creating. I'm worried that the more I talk about this, the more I'll be discovered to be like this eugenicist. Like, I don't. That's one reason I don't want to talk about all this.
Okay.
Cancellation. But like, yeah. So even this impulse, like being selective about with whom one reproduces, could you could frame as like eugenicist.
Oh, no. You should be selective about who you reproduce with. Like, I wouldn't like want to have sex with a homeless woman and try to make babies with her. Like, yeah, absolutely. You should be selective like that.
Well, that's a pretty eugenicist thing of you to say.
I guess, yeah, I guess it is.
Oh, that's the cutoff point. That's the spicy point. Yes, a homeless bag lady is like, I don't know if I want to stick my dick in that. Yeah, that's a spicy opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Here's my thing. I think that humans should be able to select who they have sex with, right, and who they want to reproduce with. I am 100% in favor of that. That's not eugenics. That's that is it's not quite natural selection. I guess it would be
sexual selection.
You're right. It's sexual selection. So so I'm in favor of that. I think that's fantastic. We should keep doing that because we see every sexually reproducing animal in the animal kingdom doing that, and I think that makes sense. Big thumbs up for that. My only issue is when someone else gets involved and they start telling other people who they should or should not reproduce with. I think that is the dangerous thing, and fuck that.
Okay, that's a bit more eugenicist, yeah. But I see the logic. Yeah.
But in general, I think that, look, if you don't want to have kids, then you don't have to. Like, I'm not here to force my position on anyone. In fact, to a certain extent, actually, maybe I kind of want more people to not have kids because that allows more space for my own children, right? So that's actually it benefits me.
I thought you were going to say because they're leftists.
No, well, I mean, maybe, but
shit.
But maybe it would benefit me if less people had kids. But I think that if you choose not to have kids, that's fine. You don't have to. But you are effectively eliminating not only your genotype but also your phenotype from existence. You are choosing, like, basically in life you have a choice. You have the choice to choose to exist, or you have the choice to not exist, right? And I think that in general, it's better to choose existence over non-existence. You don't want to just march forward into the oblivion. You don't want to become part of the abyss. But if you choose to become part of the abyss, then you will stop existing, and that's fine.
Okay, so I'm gonna flatter myself a bit more. Let everyone dwell on what General Chief just said about the abyss and the non-abyss, as far as we know about as naturalists being propagating or not. What I was going to say was part of what makes me think about eugenics is like being my own science experiment. So it's like understanding that I'm breeding myself for some things, not having sufficient genetic control, like controlling for genetic diseases or even shortcomings with respect to my physiology or constitution. Like I would wish for that control, and there are lots of things like that that come into it, like knowing that I'm propagating myself as a member of a species to some end. Like I can some Star Trek and shit like that seems to come into it in as I think of it now, wherein by which I mean yeah, just understanding like you're a humanoid species with enough intelligence to know consciously that you're reproducing in a self-conscious way. I even phrased in on Discord in text at one point like that Darwin was. It's funny to think of Darwin as the first self-conscious replicator.
Yeah, he was also the most brilliant man to ever exist.
Yeah,
Nah,
yeah, you said that.
of course.
I find it interesting you say that. Although I don't know too much. I know a little bit about Darwin, his biography, but not a whole lot.
Well,
So I'm going to say post Darwin, people like me who are secretly big brained are struggling with being a self-conscious replicator for various reasons.
oh yeah, it's very tricky. And let me just say this, because you keep harkening back to eugenics. Now, I want to actually say my strongest argument against eugenics, and that is man is not more intelligent than nature. I think, from my perspective, it is effectively impossible for man or any collection of men to be smarter than what the natural world can think up. So when you try to do eugenics, what you end up doing is you're selecting for weird parameters, like you try to maximize IQ, for instance. Well, okay, what if say the people with the highest IQ also have the highest propensity for Asperger's, right? In that case, you accidentally end up selecting for a civilization that is super autistic, and that's probably not the best thing. You want to have a few autistic people around, but you don't want to have only autistic people around. In general, nature will do a much better. Nature has much better parameters of selection than man can possibly conceive of. So, eugenics, much like, let's say, trying to control an economy from a top-down Keynesian mechanism, it's dumb. It's retarded, and it doesn't work, and it leads to greater evils than you could possibly anticipate. And
Right.
I want to, because I think this is a good time to reference this. So I posted on 4chan last night. It was late at night, and I was a couple beers in. So I posted on 4chan. I just want to point this out because it's somewhat relevant. I said, "Sup, bros? I think nature is essentially the God that all religions have been describing. Christian God, Muslim God, Jew God, Buddhist God, Taoist God. They're all aspects of a common entity. That common entity is effectively nature. I think maybe these religions didn't want to see what was directly in front of their face. that the creator was the nature that man came from. And they tried to seek an alternate creator out in the realms of logic and spiritualism. But those realms are the space of human thinking, universes created by minds which were created by nature. I believe nature itself is the god of mankind. So I just wanted to put that thought out there.
I understand. I've had similar thoughts, and I think I can do stuff with that. Brakir has been relatively silent this episode. How are you feeling, Brakir?
Well, the thing about what you just said, TokyoDrift, that's from my perspective, that is a bit irreconcilable, rarefied ideology that you're trying to pull from the ether and shove into the. You're trying to shove that round peg into the square hole of the human instinct, maybe a bit more forcefully than you should, because if you ever read The Revolutionary Phenotype by Papa J.F., the thing that you're describing is basically a very, mild and atomized and individual level version of the Revolutionary Phenotype, where it's not so much your actual genetics selecting when and how they will propagate. It's more so this ideological framework of yours. Now, one of the problems that me and General Chief have talked about in great depth on matters like that is that what that will eventually lead to is your sex drive over many generations of your descendants. Their sex drive will eventually be more geared toward the reproduction of that mental philosophical model than the actual genes. And that's when the revolutionary phenotype starts to sneak in.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I think I understand. I'm going to get the revolutionary phenotype, I think, even though I disavow JF's more other views. Yeah, formally.
How could you disavow
He's just a mild mannered Quebecois who's talking about genes. I don't understand what's wrong with JF.
He's he's an
well, the thing of JF has actually made very ardent arguments against eugenics, similar to the ones General Chief has just been making. The thing of it is about JF is I know if you look him up on Google, some of the first things you're going to see, it's basically Adolf Hitler 2.0. But the actual thing about it is, compared to a lot of the other alt-right talking heads floating around on the internet, he's one of the few people that actually goes out into the woods, into the middle of nowhere of Canada land, with his white girlfriend, and builds his family to his own devices and farms, and he actually lives the type of lifestyle that he talks about himself. And to the extent that he talks about it publicly at all he ever says about it is this: basically, it's the best way for him, and he would argue that it's the best way for humans in general to reproduce. But he doesn't want an actual legalistic injunction to force other people to do the type of things that he's doing. He basically just wants to be left the fuck alone in the middle of nowhere in Canada with his white girlfriend and reproduce with his white babies. And you know what? He actually does it for real.
And it doesn't matter that his girlfriend is autistic. Exactly.
Well, no, we're never having JF on the show, you son of a bitch.
That's a joke. It's a joke. I know.
These are personal attacks against my family.
I like JF very much. That's a joke.
Yeah.
I appreciate the diversity of the cognitively divergent mind.
I actually agree. I agree. You know what? Here's the thing. Breaker, I am very good friends with you, and I think that you're kind of autistic, so I get it.
You son of a bitch. But anyway, TokyoDrift, as you were saying.
Yeah, no, I accept. I think I see. It's a cloud of wisdom from which I can pull a pearl, which is about I cannot manage. I may not be able to manage my propagation as intelligently as the world can.
By their fruit shall you know them, judged by their actions, not by what other people say about the person, but what they themselves do.
All right,
Yes.
so let's get this onto a different path. So, classic question. Tokyo Drift. What's your opinion on free will?
Um, so yeah, it seemed very intuitive, like this hard determinism. The yeah, I don't know if I need to reference Sam Harris, but like a very strict determinism. I don't know enough. I don't know about physics. I don't know if quantum mechanics or whatever was or is supposed to provide sort of
It
more
doesn't.
degrees of freedom. No, yeah. So Sam would have said if it adds a degree of randomness, that doesn't suggest that. I can't phrase it, but randomness doesn't imply that we have more free will.
Yeah,
I forget
yeah.
what.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I forget why I wanted to make a longer sentence, but it's not coming to me. So yeah, so strict, very very strict determinism made great sense to me. I I look at people, even if I don't read their thinking deeply, who believe in free will. Um, yeah, so I mean, I guess if I gesture at a nascent free will or compatibilist perspective, I will borrow other statements from this conversation about the specialness of humans. So it's to say, we may have generated the universe of logic and whatever the Platonic realm. It could follow that there's a certain sort of free will that we participate in collectively or collaboratively, even if not at the at other levels, at some more fundamental level. But I'm gesturing. I'm gesturing because I can't fill it in. I can't quite construct free will. Um, it could also be like a big brain problem, or someone who thinks that they have developed a bird's eye view on humanity, or on yeah, on let's say on humanity. It's to say people who are more intuitive or whatever, less afflicted in the way that I am, uh, appreciate their free will more. Like it is some kind of force or thing, and there are more intuitive people who are less neurotic, who uh, very much perceive an operative free will. I
I
want to give an example.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm. It's just because it's just a statement, and it sounds my statement standing as it is sounds a bit dry to me. So I'm trying to think. I'm trying to describe this character who perceives their free will accurately. That's to say,
Jesus.
Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
Is that what you mean?
That's
I
that
mean,
might not be too far out of the ballpark, actually. Weirdly enough, that you say that, General Chief.
I mean, if anyone had a very good grasp of their own free will, it'd probably be Jesus, right?
Uh, yeah. Or shall we generalize that to mean like a sage? Like you believe in sages, like the Greeks did, who perhaps had a certain amount of free will.
Oh, like a Buddha. Yeah. We
Yeah.
could say that. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say something quite different. Like when I talk about intuitive people, I mean like kind of normies. So they're saying, I want to do a cartwheel. So it's a certain projection into the future, a certain commitment to do something, like forming a commitment to do something. Yeah. So there's a realm. So you could say the commitment. How does that come about? Yeah. So they're not conscious. Us as determinists would say they're not conscious of all their influences. The whole thing was set in motion from an initial state. But like the Platonic realm, the realm of free will is there's a more relevant realm called free will, wherein you can reasonably say, "I want to do a cartwheel," and then I do it.
See, these realms that you keep speaking of, they are of they're of the design of man.
Yeah.
There's an
The design.
issue. There's an issue with things being of the design of man. Uh, Whether you believe in God or you believe in nature God, I mean, the realms that are the design of men do not hold up. They are not absolute truth.
This thing. So this term, the design, things that are the design of men. It's not self. Those things aren't self-evidently fake or
No,
deluded.
but they are the design of man. And is man perfect? No, man is not perfect. Ergo, his designs are imperfect. Ergo, it makes little
Well,
sense to put absolute trust in these designs.
a perfect sounds like a very particular construction itself. It sounds like a mathematical construction, like infinity. Perfect.
Yeah, the very notion of perfection is also a design, so you're refuting your own point with a refutation of your own point, General Chief.
All right, okay, all right. Let me say this. In the way that I construct things, there is no concept of perfection. But what I'm saying is that the conceptions of man are more flawed than, let's say, the machinations of nature. So it makes little sense to trust the constructions of man when you can look at nature and see far wiser and grander constructions. That is to say, fuck Plato and fuck postmodernism, right?
we we somehow, for some reason, I want to bring up like idealism, like so that's to say you can't point at nature in opposition to man entirely, because we observe nature according to our limitation. We can only, yeah, our observations are constrained by our nature, type of thing.
Well, right,
That's one of
of
the
course.
key problems I have with the anthrocentric perspective that me and General Chief have talked about in the past. Like, there's this tendency in, like, especially biological language and the type of dialectics that me and General Chief have very often, where most of the time when we're doing that, I always try to sneak in this little barb somewhere. You've probably caught it many times, General Chief, that the anthropomorphization of the linguistic terms that we use to talk about natural philosophy when it comes to evolutionary biology, we kind of are weirdly boxed in that we're humans using human language evolved as an evolutionary adaptation of humans to discuss this idea. So it's sort of necessary, like, just to have a conversation with another human in any language is itself an anthropomorphization, because we're using human language to talk about these ideas. Now, that doesn't necessarily denote, and I think what TokyoDrift is trying to get at, that doesn't necessarily denote, like, because we could simultaneously look at these things like, okay, the bacteria doesn't quote unquote think or want to do things in the way that humans, the aggregation of these single cellular organisms in a very specific evolutionary framework, will want to do things. Like, a bacteria doesn't get up on its two legs with bipedal locomotion and its forward-facing eyes and looking at things. Like, none of those, like, elements of its nature has nothing to do with the human nature. So when we say, even if we say something like bacteria want to do something, we're already anthropomorphizing it.
Right. If you say that bacteria want to do something, what you're saying is that the evolutionary pressure is it has an entropic disposition towards a particular trait or position, right? Of course, and in fact, I might actually argue that even when we're discussing free will within humans, we're actually anthropomorphizing the concept of human free will, right? Because we have a sensation of what free will kind of, sort of, maybe feels like. I would say that perhaps we have the illusion of free will, but perhaps that actually doesn't exist, period. And so we are anthropomorphizing human free will based off of our own subjective experience. Interesting little argument that we could get into there.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
Breaker, I feel as though you're
if
trying
I
to
didn't
say
die,
something. You might, yeah, you might have to repeat that. Go ahead.
You're back.
Check 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll say this, and then I'm going to let TokyoDrift get in. There's this term that you've heard me bring up before, like the map is not the territory. Now, that applies to like this anthropomorphization of the biological organisms just as much as it applies to a term like idealism. When us humans say idealism, we kind of take for granted that we're talking about a human idea in a human head, like you yourself do very often, General Chief, where the quote-unquote constructs of man. And in a way, that's not incorrect, but just like the bacteria they have a will to do something. It's not one-for-one correlation with human wills to do something, but when it's humans talking about the bacteria, we just used anthropomorphized shorthand to say that the bacteria moves over there and does that thing because it wants a objective. Like, that's a very human way of putting it, but in the subtext of that, we kind of know what we mean, that the bacteria aren't human, and we already know that.
Yeah.
Just like in the idealistic sense, on the more transcendental side of this, the ideology, quote-unquote, of course, it's us humans talking about the ideology, and we're going to automatically anthropomorphize it because it's formulating inside of our human brains, and then we're using these mimetic devices of language to communicate it. But the actual ideology itself is more super permeable to that and applies to much more organisms, and I would even argue base physical phenomenon. Then it's not as though the meteor wants to go toward the more massive body in a way that you want to walk to your kitchen and grab a piece of toast, but there is a type of fundamental will to action for that to occur.
Well, and I just to point out, so memes can replicate. They are not the primary replicator. They're not the dominant replicator, but they can replicate. And a function of replicators is that they want things in the very anthropomorphic sense. And again, when I say that, it's more like they're trying to achieve maximum entropy within a system. But it is also possible for memes to effectively, quote unquote, want things. I want to make that point said.
That memes want things.
Yes.
There's a fundamental asymmetry in how, okay, there's this specific energy density in a certain part of reality that wants to reach like an entropic equilibrium like you were talking about. That would be like a very basic mechanical way of describing this, I believe.
Interesting. Years ago, or recently, someone put out a book about free will. I don't know who. I'm going to read this one line that I saved from it because the tweet was deleted. So this line is, being intentional is a semantic or logical property. Physical states do not have this property. So to me, so my brain was preloaded with it. So I'm biased. I've biased myself, but I'm saying I want to say this is compatible with my gesture at a different like world, like a platonic world, where we're in, which is with which free will is concerned. It's a category error, if I know what that means. It's a category error to say that a physical state should have free will, so or have intentions. So an object or a physical configuration, a physical thing will not have intention or will, but because all the quote says is because it's a semantic or logical property.
I more or less agree. I think that physical things don't really have a will, but if you're something like a human, you can definitely have the illusion of a will.
Well, okay, so semantic meaning, which means meaning, right?
Sure.
Semantic that's about meaning. So Yeah, so this person's doing something to put the discussion of free will in its place, like to create a category for free will, which is a semantic and logical category.
I mean, you can have so many different semantic arguments. I mean, yeah, whatever. We can use words to use to mean whatever we mean. If
I
we
think
want to if we want to replace the word free will, like I was a couple months back, I was talking to a Christian. I was talking to them about free will, and this comes up because I guess I have a small argument against Christianity, and that is that if God is omniscient and he knows the past, present, and future to perfection, then he already knows what you're going to do. And so, if it is already known what you are going to do, how is it possible for you to have free will? Because it's very important within Christian theology that you do have free will, because otherwise, how can you make the choice to believe in Jesus and ascend to heaven? It's incredibly important that man has free will within Christian theology, and yet it seems to me as though Christian theology doesn't really allow for free will. Interesting little conundrum. Of course, I've talked to a few Christians about this. Different Christians have said different things, but it's like one Christian said, well, okay, you have the libertarian view of free will, which is, I guess, what most people see as free will, and then you have like this other version of free will where you don't technically have free will, but I guess you sort of kind of do, and at that point, that's just a semantic argument, right? You're redefining terms so that you can make your point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's fine. And the Christian thing is interesting, but I can't represent it well. I think Brakir was going to chime in, so I don't want him to forget what he was saying, but I will say quickly that I meant semantic in a purest sense, meaning free will is relevant in the semantic realm, i.e. a realm of meaning, which is specific to people. So there is free will with respect to like alternatives, to say that a man could retrospectively or otherwise list alternative courses of action, which gives context to his choice, so to speak, which gives shape to his free will, at least with respect to a past decision. Semantic in a purer sense than you understood. So not about redefining words, but semantic meaning the realm of meaning.
I don't know what the realm of meaning is. Is this something that we can study directly? Is this something I can point a laser at and figure out what's happening there?
I'm piggybacking on. I don't know if it was you or Bakir who mounted a realm of logic or like a mathematical realm that is
the idealistic realm.
I know not about a realm of meaning, and I feel as though this is something that you've invented, because I haven't seen it in my own life. Like when I see like a cat eat a bird, I don't see a realm of meaning in that interaction.
So not a big realm, or like I'm not instituting I'm not trying to institute a new concept. The realm of meaning in the sense that where any two concepts relate. So
I haven't seen this thing. Like, it might exist. I haven't seen it like directly.
Do you find that you can relate concepts to one another?
That my brain can? Yeah, 100%.
Okay, you can say your brain. So I'm talking about.
But here's the interesting thing, right? Like, my brain relates concepts differently than your brain does.
That's fine.
Right. So there is no a higher order realm of semantics or meaning or anything like that. It's just we have minds that can relate things because it is advantageous to our survival. That's what we have. We have minds. Of course, we have minds.
Fight!
No, but this is just to say that you can. It's a thought. I'm happy to say it's a thought experiment. So the thought experiment is that. By realm of meaning, I mean that's a term for the phenomenon, the more recognizable phenomenon, whereby people can communicate because they understand upon a set of meanings. 4 words, for example.
Look, I am not the biggest studier of philosophy. I engage in it, but sometimes I think that it gets a little bit silly, and I don't know as much. In fact, actually, this is the some major strength that Breaker provides to the show. He knows more about philosophy than I do, and so I will have to turn to Breaker and say, Breaker, is this postmodernism? Because it sounds like it to me.
It's not that simple, really. I think TokyoDrift there's a bit more like metaphysical basis to what TokyoDrift's saying than what would usually come from a more ardent postmodern thinker, I will say. But what I was going to add to this is, I think your favorite philosopher, Aristotle, actually put this type of thing that we're talking about right now in a very specific way. I remember in one of his books he was talking about the concept of habituation. And life forms basically can be habituated into different modes of being within certain parameters, whereas like for example, if you were to take a rock and throw it into the air and catch it over and over and over, even if you did that 10,000 times, the rock is never going to be able to develop the habit of flying, even though you imparted like upward momentum and something that could be considered a type of temporary flight. The rock is basically an entity of pure impetus, that its habit is so ingrained within its being that it can never be changed, even if you threw it in the air thousands of times. Now, if you pick up a cat and chuck it in the air, it's not going to learn to fly either, but it is going to alter its behavior depending on the cat to probably try and avoid you in the future.
That's true. I do the same thing with my cat. It doesn't like me.
Exactly. So, and like, when you're talking about things as complex as humans, like, you'll notice with humans, like, once something becomes a habit, you kind of have to work to stop yourself from doing the thing. Like, habituation, you could have good habits and bad habits, and bad habits are hard to break, but good habits are also hard to break. But there's like that barrier of impetus. But with something like a human, that barrier of impetus is dynamic and changeable over time through habituation, whereas like the impetus of a rock is more absolute. It cannot be changed even if you throw it into the air 1,000,000 times.
Fundamentally, this doesn't advocate for free will on either side. It just says that these systems behave differently in response to inputs.
Well, it's funny that you put it that way because, like, responding to different inputs, like, animals actually have more impetus than humans in certain ways because, like, the instincts of a cat, like you mentioned, you're like a big cat fan. You know, the way you tame cats is basically while interacting with them while they're eating makes the cat tame over time.
That's true.
Now, it's a natural habit of the cat to seek out food and it has this instinct where whatever it's eating food with that's not attacking it is something that it doesn't necessarily need to worry about too much. So there's this kind of natural habit that the cat has that you just come in from the side and kind of trickily exploit on the side. It is part of its instinct to do that, and that type of habituation is much more deeply ingrained by millions of years of evolution, you could argue, for the cat to seek out food and eat food. And it's also ingrained that's like social engagement while eating food is a good thing because it usually associates that with the parents because it's sort of a slightly social mammal that's not as social as a dog or a primate. But there's that degree of sociability where you can domesticate the cat by exploiting that window of social behavior that it already has. Whereas, like, a rock is just a heavy piece of inert matter that is always going to fall towards a more massive body. No matter what you do, that's all you can try and stop that from happening, but what goes up must come down, guaranteed. So that line of impetus is never going to be changed.
You can have a pet rock, but it's better to have a pet cat. Yeah.
Well, you can't pet a rock, but
you can pet it.
not going to give any input.
You can pet a rock. It's not that worthwhile.
And over time, you might erode the rock away if you pet it very stringently for a very long period of time. Your hands will eventually erode smooth spots on the rock, but that's more of a changing of its nature rather than habituation of its nature to change.
All right. Well, let me capstone this, and let me say so. Maybe like a week ago, Breaker and I were having a very interesting conversation about free will. This wasn't on the show, but I was thinking an idea. I'm not sure if it was entirely correct, but I want to put it out there. It was what I was thinking, whether it's valid or not, whether it's retarded or not. So my thought was that maybe there is some semblance of free will, and this is the only type of free will that exists, and it is the choice of a replicator to either exist or to not exist. And maybe potentially, if there is such a thing as free will, it would come down to this choice. It's fundamentally exist or not exist, and this would be a choice that would only be up to the replicator to make. And so I wanted to put that out there into the ether. I'll probably have to think about that a little bit more, but there it is. Just a naked idea that is not very well defended. Boom.
Well,
That's Tokyo Drift specialty. Go, Tokyo, go. Drift in.
Yeah. So if I tried to flatter that, I don't say it was smart or not. That's not my job. If I tried to flatter it, however, that's to say, I would say, so you're talking about a threshold where free will comes about. So it honors a threshold that many people impart to humans, a threshold of attaining free will that people associate with humans. Because, so humans are the ones that I think, I don't know about which animals exhibit suicidal behavior, so this sounds like it's gesturing at the choice of humans to
the
exist
Japanese do.
or not. That's a joke about animals, about attributing, calling human beings animals.
Let's not explain the joke.
Okay, that's fine. Americans saying stuff about Japanese people is traditional, I guess.
Is it?
So where was I? Let me remember where I was. Yeah, so it honors a threshold that many people attribute to humans, being that they have attained free will. So they would represent a replicator which, in momentous fashion, can choose not to replicate, which is the most fundamental choice, to replicate or not. In your view, I understand. Roughly.
All right. So this is my perspective on all of this. I believe that we can walk around with our conceptions of mathematical formulas and logic and reason, and we can think all about philosophy and free will, and we can have an infinite number of conceptions, and it's all fantastic. And within this realm, we can even come up with the idea of gods. The Romans can come up with some sort of polytheism where they have many gods. The Abrahamic religions can come up with an idea where they have one god. And the Eastern philosophies, such as like Buddhism or Taoism, can come up with some sort of concept of like a pantheism where they believe that there is an ultimate enlightenment that you can achieve, and all of this sort of stuff. We can play this game all day, every day, and it's a fun game to play, no doubt. We've been doing it for thousands of years. In my perspective, I believe that these are all the creations of man. It's a little bit schizo, basically, and I think that these things they pale in comparison to the much greater force that we face every day that is right in front of our eyes, and that is the nature that we came from. Nature created us. It created the animals that we call pets, and the animals that we hunt, and the animals that we're afraid of. It created the trees and the plants from which we get a lot of our food sources from. It created the oxygen that we breathe. This fundamentally is the thing that allows us to be alive. It is not our human conceptions about some sort of idea about God that exists within our minds and that were themselves fundamentally evolved by nature. Our ability to see is something that came from nature, and I do not see any other gods. So I will say that, and we can either continue discussing this or move on to another topic.
I can see that may be a consistent position.
Okay. Of course it is.
Yeah. And yeah, it's evocative when you say it's schizo. Like it's funny, yeah. The notion that one might be able to forget philosophizing in general, or their own philosophizing, and return to some more realistic perspective by rejecting,
I'm philosophizing with you right now.
that's fine. So yeah, so there's a little paradox, but it sounds as if yes, you found a technique for rejecting mentation in general, or not overemphasizing mentation, as opposed to when it's something like appreciating nature somehow. But I think it would be difficult because yeah, you're undertaking some form of mentation in appreciating nature or obeying nature versus constructing corollaries to well, I don't know. I'm not sure quite what you're against, like
Well,
constructing corollaries to observations or projecting.
what I may posit is that I think that what I'm saying is at least a logical conclusion of going full empirical.
Sorry, a logical conclusion to going full empirical. Okay, full empirical. Yeah, so empiricism. Yeah, as it happens, I don't know how much Kant Procure has done. I'm on my Kant introduction, so strict. I'm open. It's adventurous and fun for me to think that one needn't be a strict empiricist. But are you saying that you want to be a strict empiricist or to be more empiricist general? You're pro empiricism.
I don't know if I would say it that way. I think that you have to involve at least a healthy amount of empiricism in order to actually study nature. But that's with the understanding that nature provided us with our senses, and our senses is how we navigate the world. And of course, we know that our senses are useful because they provide us the ability to continue to exist and replicate. And so we can trust our senses because they were provided to us from nature, and our senses are also what allows us to study nature. And so, yeah, I think that's the thing. You study nature with your senses.
It's interesting. It's interesting, and it doesn't sound like too many priors, like for me. But like I'm conscious.
It's basically the it's like the mirror image of like the Christian adage, right? That God ordained man with reason, and therefore you can use reason to consider God, right? Nature ordained us with senses, and therefore we can consider nature with our senses.
Okay, interesting. That's a good way of putting it. Provocative, even. because yeah, you can see a cycle or a cyclical character to it. That's fun to contemplate. I'm going to do one thing really quick, in as bad faith a way as it may seem.
Let's go. Let's fight.
No, so it's to say, I'm going to appeal to Brakir as an authority. I'm appealing to authority. So by realm of meaning, I'm just trying to find like an equivalent platonic space. Like, so a platonic realm is not widely accepted. Like I think, except like Roger Penrose has like 3 worlds, like a physical world, a platonic world, and a third one that I don't remember what he labeled it. So at least one prominent physicist grants something like a platonic realm. But by this we mean, yeah, so what I think he means by platonic realm is the plane or the level of abstraction, if you prefer, at which you can make mathematical arguments or whatever, or logical arguments. I'm. It could be in that same world, that same space, that I'm trying to talk about a realm of meaning. So nothing, not a fancy new thing, but a realm or a sense in which we can understand each other, in which statements have meaning, or that is like they have content and interrelations with other concepts. So that's me trying to explain trying to grasp what semantic means. I had to Google it while we were talking, and it says meaning when it comes to like words. So meaning, but in terms of, I think it was words.
Yeah, that's
I'm
usually
going to
what
do
it
it
means.
again.
Yeah.
So
Actually, if you
relating,
think about it, this is the interesting bit.
Yeah.
The word semantics is itself a word with a meaning. Boom.
Hey,
Oh, snap.
If this is the kind of powers empiricism gets me, then maybe I should be an empiricist. Noticing,
I actually do have an argument against you, General Chief, that
Let's
Tokyo
go,
Drift may
Breaker.
very much appreciate. Okay, how you formulate it's like nature grants the senses, and that you then use the senses to study nature. But there's a way in which you don't, and you probably already know what I'm talking about. Like, especially in your line of work.
Yeah, I already know.
If once you, well, just for the sake of the audience, given the formulation you just said, the very fact that the technological process of the double-blind study is necessary at all to do your specific line of work, that is appealing to something extra sensuous that is not derived merely from your senses.
Well, okay. Let me say this. Let's say that you take one of those optical illusions, right? Where it's like maybe I'll reference an image of this in the show, or in the description. I'll reference an image. I'll do this, but it's like you have like a block on a checkerboard, like a chessboard, and the block casts a shadow onto a white square. And technically speaking, the white square in this image that you could pull up on your computer, it has exactly the same color as one of the dark squares that is not under the shadow, right? And your brain perceives this shadowed white square as being different than one of the unshadowed dark squares. But in fact, they're exactly the same color. Now, that's a thing where we can look at the image and we can find the hexadecimal, whatever the fuck it is, exact coloration of the two squares, and we can say, okay, they're the same color. Whereas my senses led me to believe that they were in fact different. So that is a way, I guess, that we can use we can use technology to overcome, I guess, some of our naturalistic biases when it comes to observing the world, right? You can determine absolutely that these are actually the same color, even though your perception tells you that they're not. So there are advantages to using extra senses when it comes to observing the world, and not just using purely the senses that were given to you by nature. There are advantages to that.
There's also another optical illusion that I can reference in regards to things like this that is as profound, if not more so, than that one, and it's the three squares that look like the corner of a cube. Are they convex or concave?
Ah, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Good
The answer
question.
technically is neither, because you're looking at a two-dimensional flat space, so it is neither. Like, literally, your mind's perception of the third dimension in this case is wrong on both counts.
Right,
Yes.
and some people have actually used this to be like, oh my god, like there's no way that you can, there some people have used this to be like, oh, there's a gap point in like the human mind, and like this is this is alluring to something. It's the fact that, oh my god, the human mind is incapable of understanding like things in totality. And yeah, I think maybe that's kind of true. But fundamentally, it's a trickery that exists in the mind because of our evolutionary origins. There's not really that much to read into. It's just our evolutionary history and how the visual cortex evolved.
I think also emotion can play into it too, because if you're thirsty, it'll look concave, and if you're afraid, it'll look convex.
I am. That's good.
And you could probably
Um,
think of evolutionary reasons as to why that would be.
mm, okay. I have questions that I would pick up, but it's my bedtime. You don't feel the need to end the show
No,
early.
no, no.
And
Actually, this is a great place to end it. We're at 2 hours and 6 minutes, which is a
Perfectly
very,
coincides with the ending of the show.
yeah, precisely. So
it's
let's see. Breaker, do you have any closing statements?
There are more things on heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy, Horatio.
I love that quote. And TokyoDrift?
my contribution is I thought Bucky was going to say, "Read some books, you Super Mario son of a bitch."
All right.
You Super Mario son of a bitch. Bing, bing, wahoo!
Well, with that, if you have reached this point in the show, thank you very much for listening, and remember to like and subscribe. Once again, if you have a particularly choice piece of music, you can put that down in the comments. If you have anything else that you want to say about the show, you can also put that down in the comments. We, as you can see right here, we're not pricks about things. We won't attack you. We like to just have a quality discussion. And yeah, absolutely. So peace out, everyone.